Captain Byrd of Knoxville. He was with the 1st Combat Engineers, which was attached to the 1st Infantry Division, World War II. Okay, if you could describe where you were immediately prior to your service, what you were doing, and what led to your joining the service.
Well, I don't want to go back in my childhood, but I was orphaned at an early age, and I had 5 brothers and sisters, and they put them in a Baptist orphanage, and I was working left school at 7th grade, and I was working at a sawmill right across from where we lived, and I didn't want to go to the orphanage. I told them I was going to join the Army. I was 16-year-old. So I hitchhiked to Knoxville where my aunt and uncle lived. I lived in Jefferson City at that time. So I hitchhiked to Knoxville, and my uncle and my aunt tried to get me to go back to school. The Red Cross was going to pay for it, everything. And I had no parents. My aunt and uncle they took me under their wing. And I said, no, I'm going to join the Army or the CCCs. And they begged, and I said, no. I said, I've made my mind up. I'm not going to school. Everything is disoriented. So my uncle took me down to recruiting sergeant down here at the main post office. And they knew each other, and my uncle told him, says, I want to enlist. And he says, well, is he old enough? And he says, well, he says he is. 17 is what the age. And the sergeant says, are you 17? I said, yeah. And knowing that I was just telling a point-blank lie, knowing if they did take me in and they found out maybe they court-martialed me. Anyway, they enlisted me, and I was 2 pound underweight. And so I went to Fort Overthorpe, Georgia. Me and we walked about 6 of us down Gay Street to the Southern Railroad. Took us to Fort Overthorpe, Georgia, and stayed down there, and that was horse cavalry. Stayed down there during Christmas. I enlisted in November the 28th, 1939. I should have told you that. Anyway, stayed down there through Christmas, then we went from there to Fort McPherson, Georgia. And then they sent us from there to Fort Benning, Georgia, and signed us to the 1st Division. Now, I'll tell you the funny thing about it. When I joined the engineers, I thought it would be a railroad, you know. Oh, I hear I was going to be an engineer. But I found out that it wasn't that type of work. Of course, they do have engineers in the Army, but I wasn't one of them. Anyway, I joined the 1st Infantry Division, took my basic, 13 weeks basic, and I got assigned to a platoon, and finally I became a full-fledged soldier. And so we moved from Fort Benning, Georgia to Fort DuPont, Delaware. I stayed up there for, 6 months, I guess. That's when they divided the division. The engineers was at Fort DuPont, Delaware, and the rest of the division was kind of strung around different forts, different camps. And I think they foresaw in the future of a war because they started building up the troops. And that's 1940. And so at Fort DuPont, Delaware, I turned 17. And so we went to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, where the whole division come together. And then we started training, some hard training.
What was that like? Did it differ much from basic?
It was different from basic. It was building bridges. We were building bridges, learn how to build roads, bridges, learn how to put these metal bridges together, and also wooden bridges, how to build another bridge over a bridge that had been knocked out. And then we would get we was a combat team for the infantry. My company, C Company, was with the 26th Infantry. A Company was with the 16th Infantry. And B Company was with the 18th Infantry. So it's a combat team. And when we wasn't building bridges and digging up mines or laying mines, well, we were in the lines with the infantry. And we got at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. They tried to make ski troopers out of us. No kidding. They took us, it snowed up there, and they went to Nashville, New Hampshire, and got skis. And, we're going to have a big time. I couldn't me, I couldn't even stand up on the fire escape. Anyhow, they tried that. Then on the bulletin board, they put a bulletin board there. On the bulletin board, they wanted to start the paratroopers. And as young as we were, we was seeking out macho stuff, you know. We wanted to be in the high echelon, and so anybody wanted to join, they could put their name on the list. So a bunch of us, we put our names out there, and First Sergeant called us together and says, "Fellas, you don't know what you're doing." He said, "Now this says, picture yourself in an airplane, jumping out and pulling a ripcord. It may not open. It may not open." He gave us a whole spiel, you know, what to expect in paratroopers. Of course, there wasn't no paratroopers then, but they got knowledge of the whole setup. And well, he convinced us that we shouldn't get in the paratrooper, and I'm glad I didn't.
How come?
Oh well,
all that.
When we saw things happen in Sicily and in Europe, in Sicily we shot our own paratroopers down because of lack of communication from ground to air. We shot a lot of our paratroopers. Used artillery and shot the planes down, and that's why we was landing. And also in Europe, you know, they landed on D-Day. Just one drove after another jumping, gliders and so forth. Well, I was glad I wasn't in the paratroopers, because when you're coming down, you're helpless. You're just hanging there at the mercy of God, and that's it. But as we went along and went on a lot of maneuvers, North Carolina maneuvers, Louisiana maneuvers, we was just and show you how we were in that trying to build up a modern army. We didn't have artillery pieces. We took sawhorses, if you know what a sawhorse is, and laid a pine pole or some kind of play like it was an artillery piece. And during the maneuvers, they would have AT-6 planes, trainer planes for pilots, and they had to start in the Air Force. They would drop little bags of flour on our maneuvers, and that flour would bust. Just paper bags would bust, and just a little flour would get on you, you're wounded. So that's how they got us, got the wounded. But anyhow, as we went along, and I had Army in my blood even then. Really, how come to join the Army? I used to live in Eddyville, Tennessee, and us boys used to go to the National Guard Armory, and just the cadence of the the guys marching on that hardwood floor in the armory. That's what I wanted, and I just grew up in that in my mind. But as we went on, and we went a lot of maneuvers, went to Puerto Rico, and this is a horrible thing that happened in my life. We went to Puerto Rico. We got on a ship in Boston, Massachusetts, and got to Charleston, South Carolina. A boiler blew up on our ship. We was going to be in the harbor for a day or two, and so I asked my platoon leader. I didn't know how far Knoxville was from Charleston, South Carolina. No traffic on the road back then. You know, just a few cars. A lot of farmers with their wagons. So I went to my platoon leader. I says, "Well, I'm not too far from home. Could I go home?" He says, "You'll be back before bed check. Bed check 11 o'clock." That made me so mad because I knew I couldn't be back by then. So 3 of us went over the hill. Now this is a horrible part in my career, my Army career. And the fellow that I went over with had been over the hill before, absent without leave. And so if you stay over 10 days, they get you for desertion. So we come to Knoxville, stayed 2 or 3 days. My uncle just bawled me out. He says, "You're over the hill. Let me see your pass." He'd been in the Army himself. He knew. He says, "You better get back to camp." And so my aunt washed my uniforms and everything, or my uniform. We just had one uniform. And so we hitchhiked over to Millsboro, Kentucky, where my buddy lived. Stayed there a few days and went on to Fort Thomas, Kentucky. 8 days we turned in. And he'd been there before at Fort Thomas, and boy, they knew him. And that was a guardhouse like Alcatraz. I mean, you made big rocks out of little rocks out of big ones. 20-pound sledgehammer. I tell you, John, I was That's one time I wish I'd have never done that. So but anyway, I learned a lesson.
They put you in there.
Oh yes.
4 times. For how long?
But I was in Fort Thomas about 2 months before my outfit got back to Fort Devens. And then after they got back to Fort Devens, my outfit sent for us. We had to pay the MP, they'd give us an MP, take us all the way to Fort Devens. We paid our way and his way round trip. They took it out of our pay, you know. And so they took us to Fort Devens, then we got court-martialed. And they tried to get me to squeal on my buddy that he talked me into going over the hill. And I said, no, he didn't talk me. He did talk me into it, but I wouldn't squeal on him. Now that's buddy, you know, he wouldn't squeal on him. And they gave me 3 months and him 6 months. They was going to give him a general court-martial, where I got a special court-martial. And so they put me in the guardhouse, and I was PFC. I lost that. Here I was a private again. And so we come up for North Carolina maneuvers, and Colonel Butler took everybody out of the guardhouse and brought us down to his office. Boy, he was a rough colonel. We call him Silver Fox.
How come? Because of his hair?
Hair. Big, tall, lanky West Pointer. He said, men, you don't salute me, you don't stand attention, you don't sir me. You lost all your rights until you agree with what I'm going to tell you. Well, we couldn't figure out what. He says, we're going to North Carolina maneuvers. I'm taking you fellas out and suspend your sentence if you straighten up and fly right. Don't have nothing against you on these maneuvers. And he said, now you got anything to say? I says, Colonel, sir, I says, you're looking at a soldier that's really straightened up. He said, well, I hope so. Anyway, he let us go, and so that was wonderful. But on North Carolina maneuvers, we had a real maneuver. Come back, and so the division still in preparation. They started getting in new trucks and all kinds of artillery pieces, and so we moved from there to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. That's debarkation unit, place where we was shut in, no friends, nobody, all the wives, sweethearts, they were restricted. They took us over to Brooklyn Army Base and put us on Queen Murray and sent us overseas. That's 1941, 42, I'm sorry.
What about January or so?
It's in August 2nd. And we landed in Scotland, and then we got into England and started training. We didn't know where we was going to, what we was going to do. Just, I mean, some real training. Going up them goat paths, walk with machine guns and full field pikes, and just it's just day in and day out. 30 mile hike, 15 out, 15 mile back, and it's just real hard training. And we knew that we were going to hit somewhere, we didn't know where. So then they kind of spread us out again, sent us to Inverary, Scotland, where we really got in some mountains. I mean, it was straight up. Just hike in the mud and the rain. It just rained and rained and rained. And so then they took us and put us on put the combat teams on different ships. We went out in the Mediterranean and we floated around about 18 days, just in a circle.
In the Mediterranean?
Yeah, fooling the Germans. Finally, we hit Oran, Africa, and which wasn't real tough, but it was tough enough.
What was it like before you went into Oran? Was everybody expecting it to be tough or not? What was the sentiment on the ship?
They told us, they indoctrinated us, they says, first thing we'll reach is French resistance. And we knew that's a pushover because the French surrendered to Germany so easy, without hardly fighting. And de Gaulle left France and come to Africa. And we knew that the French weren't fighters. And we knew that was our first objective, is get rid of them. And they did. They done some damage to some ships and some tanks. But after we showed them that we were there for keeps, they surrendered. And we took Oran, and That was a good base there for the shipping base. And we kindly busted up again the division, and then we started making preparations for going further into Africa. Waiting on Rommel to bring his 8th Army up with,
Montgomery.
Montgomery.
He's coming in from the other side.
Yeah, he's coming in through up to Brook and up that way.
So the initial landing there wasn't that difficult
No.
for you in the first wave, or
No,
or?
I was the second wave.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't nothing to really say it was dangerous. Of course, we had some fellows killed as they went into Oran. But as far as the beaches, it just walked on. And half tracks, you just drive them on around the beach, and then further you get into close to Oran, well, you would we run some resistance. But then we got Oran, and then the French, that's the way they are. As soon as they see you're in charge, they lollygag and give you vino and all this stuff. The women give you flowers and all this. And then the division split up again, and we started more training and reading maps at night, how to read a map at night, get under a blanket. We'd get a blanket put over us, and 2 or 3 guys get under the blanket with the platoon leader, and maybe the platoon sergeant and squad leaders would get under the blanket and have a flashlight or maybe a cigarette light or something. And so the airplanes, if there's any airplanes flying, they couldn't see no light. Strictly blackout. That's what I hate about England. It was, when we went over there, it was blackout. We don't know anything about turmoil that the English and what the whole Britain went through. But anyway, we learned what blackout meant. And then we learned how to read a compass, how to read maps, learned how to waterproof vehicles. Then they would take us and put big wall that have all the German planes, the sides on as they would, the tops, they'd be sideways. You get it, how to explain it, from the tail, looking from the tail, from the front, from the bottom. I mean, you had to learn all about those planes, and because there's a lot of our planes, we shot down some of our own planes by mistake. But then we got orders to move on up into Algiers, and we learned some real hectic lessons up through there.
What sort of lessons?
Well, we had a lot of draftees. That's when we got some replacements in, and they were young. Well, some of them are older. Some married men with children were drafted. And some young fellows, they would stick their head up. They was curious, They wanted to see the Germans. They'd never seen a German, and they wanted to see a machine gun. They wanted to see what was going on, and that's all she wrote. And you try to tell them, keep your head down. Now, if you hear a gun, just keep your head down. Don't look. And we go up. I remember in Castrine Pass, just this side of Castrine Pass. I say this side. It was, I guess, it'd be I don't know whether it'd be the south side. Anyway, before you got to Castrine Pass, it was a big valley, and we as engineers, we were clearing the path of getting the mines out for the infantry and the tanks to come through. And so before we got into looking for the mines, we was in a big gully, and there's a plane flying over. We could tell a German plane by their motors are not synchronized or something. They had a rumble. Our planes are real smooth. And somebody said, that's Photo Charlie. One plane would fly over and he'd be up high. We called him Photo Charlie. I was taking pictures.
Oh.
And that's why here comes all hell will break loose. Anyway, as he's flying along, some of these guys are taking their guns, rifling and shooting at him, see? And we said, quit that, just ball them out. And said, don't do that. You can't hit that plane. And if you could, our 50 calibers would be shooting. And our anti-aircraft would be shooting. Well, in an hour, I'd say within an hour, we was up in this valley looking for mines. And I believe I had the box, the battery, and the other guy had the if I'm telling this right. Best I remember, I had the battery, and the other guy had the detector, and so we heard the planes coming. There was two of them. We looked up, two of them, and we disconnected the sweeper from the battery that I was carrying, and we run to find cover. And here the infantry, here was jeeps. I mean, that valley was clogged, and so we run to get cover, and I got behind the rock, and I was laying on top of this battery, my rear end up in the air, and them planes come over and they strafed. Boy, I tell you, and the Stuka dive bombers, fixed landing gears, scariest airplane I ever heard. They'd have that whole scream.
It was pretty unnerving.
Oh my! Come out of the sun, you just couldn't see them, but boy, your ears would just, your hair'd stand up. And here they come right down through that valley, and they strafed. And so then, the funny part, sort of funny, it wasn't funny then, it's funny now. Some of the officers had their insignias or their bars. They were cloth, they were sewed on their collar. And the wind was blowing, this guy was talking to me, and his collar was blowing up. I didn't know. He bawled me out. There's a Jeep sitting there with a 50 caliber on. He says, "Why didn't you man that 50 caliber?" I said, "Why didn't you?" I said, "That's not my Jeep." I said, "My job is hunting mines." And then his collar laid down. I said, "I'm sorry, Lieutenant." He said, "Well, forget it." He said, "We're all excited." He said, "We better start hunting for cover." And sure enough, here they come again, dropping bombs. And the worst picture, I believe, of our own men, some of your real close friends, we kind of got all of our ducks in a row after the bombing and everything. And men are hollering and screaming. And we went down in this big gully, and there lay some guys. This is horrible, a horrible picture, I'll tell you. There led them. He was a machine gunner. He was laying there cut half in two. His face is up, and he was just turned around. His face is up, and the rest of his body was down. Just that bomb concussion just cut him in two. One of the guys, his face is just concussion, just split his face. I mean, it was a horrible picture. Another fella, he got hit on the canteen, and the water was going down his leg, and he thought he was hit. And he started running. One of the guys tackled him and got him back up under a half track, and he says, I'm hit. And the sergeant cussed him and says, "No, you're not." Says, "That canteen got a hole in it." He just knew his leg had blowed off, you know. But I guess that was the worst in our beginning of war that we really experienced.
What kind of effect did that have
on me? Well, it made me more alert, and then you see some of your buddies killed. You say, that could have been me. And I was glad I had the mine detector, because they were in this gully. And the concussion, if you ever been around dynamite, you feel a big wind. And the concussion from a 500-pound bomb it just does a lot of damage, just the concussion itself. But we got our everything together. Medics took care of the wounded and so forth. And then we got out of there just as fast as we could, because we didn't know what was coming next. And we didn't know whether the battalion commander didn't know whether to go back or go forward. And if you go back, it's level country. If you go forward, it's kind of hilly and rocky. So we decided to go forward for about 2 miles and dig in and wait for orders. And then from then on, it was wait and see. And you could hear the artillery way off in the distance. You know that Romel and Montgomery was really having it over there. I think Romel knew his days was numbered. Mm-hmm. And you see, you know, when you look out at night and a storm is brewing, way out in the distance you can see the great thunder. I mean the lightning. And We stayed there, I guess, in this one particular area for 2 days, 2 nights, and you can hear it real clear, and the flashes were getting plainer, and the guns were getting closer. Anyway, we was given orders to lay a minefield, the biggest minefield I ever saw in my life, at night time. And I guess we laid a minefield across Castrine Pass. I don't have how many miles. It seemed to me like it. Man, it was. I never saw so many mines.
What all went into the process of laying a mine?
Well, you just take your bandit, or your little shovel you got to dig your foxhole with, and just dig a hole, and you bury it deep enough to where you can cover it over real good and camouflage it with just not with your hands, but get you a brush or something and rub over it so it looked like just natural ground. It's not buried too deep. Sometimes we bury them just about, the top of them will be about ankle deep. And then you lay them, sometimes it'd be different positions how you lay them. I can't go into that detail because I can't remember too much how the mines were laid. If you lay them the way you're expecting the enemy to come, you lay it with a point towards them because they could run into it before they knew it. But if you're expecting, for instance, if you're expecting a counterattack, put it that way, you lay them that way. And we laid them, I believe they call it 2 abreast, then you spread out to 3 abreast. Start out with 2 abreast and make them 3 and put them then a little bit wider apart. And then you'd stagger them. You wouldn't put them in line. You'd kind of stagger them. And then that's Castrine Pass was a battlefield of its own, really. That's where the big tank battle took place. Then we got to El Qatar. That was a place that when I come to command, I was driving his Jeep then. And he'd take you places and scare you to death.
He liked to be up where the action was.
Yeah, he did. He smoked a pipe, had one of these pipes that had a thing on the front that you take off and pour the nicotine out, slobber. And I like to smell that pipe. So he smoked that good smelling tobacco. I chewed tobacco. And I smoked too, but I didn't smoke at night because of the aircraft flying over. But anyway, he says, Byrd says, let's go down here and watch this tank battle. Now, in that book I brought back, I could show you where we actually were.
You saw a spot in the picture?
Yeah, 2 spots. But he said, let's go down and watch this tank battle. I said, all right. He got his binoculars. So there was a German pillbox that was captured, and we went down and got in one of these German pillboxes. It was a little knoll, and we was using it, the artillery was using it before we went down there for to watch the battle. They used it for their forward observation, artillery observation, because way over in the hills over there was German artillery, and our artillery observers were using that to start with. So we went over there, and we got in this pillbox, and John, you could hear those shells ricocheting off those tanks, and you just know they're going to hit you. But they were way out there. But I was scared to death of a shell anyway. I hear one, I'd hit the dirt. I guess anybody with common sense would. And Captain Redding, he keep looking and watching them tanks. And I would look with my bare eyes, trying to see. He says, Byrd, look here through this. I'd give him his glasses. I'd look, and our poor little old tanks were absolutely taking a beat. Oh, that big old Panzer tanks just, oh man, it seemed like they were annihilated. And somehow or other, we won out. And the Panzer, I think what we thought, the history says that they were running out of fuel and ammunition too, and they couldn't keep up the battle. We had a great supply behind, not too far behind, and so we got advantage of them. But we sat there and we watched that, and the horrible thing is watching men get out of a tank when it's hit. You just wish you could reach out there and get a hold of them, and lift them out. But no way.
They're being machine gunned as they get out.
Yeah, a lot of machine
Some on fire.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And there was a part I read in that book in there that I just brought back. This Colonel Drake was walking back to the German tanks. They was trying to get him to surrender. He says, "No, he wasn't going to surrender. You go to hell." And they knew that they were whipped, so they didn't shoot him. And they just hightailed it back. And then we got on up into further on up into Tunisia. And seemed things got kind of a little bit lighter. We got the place of Hill 609. And that's what I don't like about some of this war history. I know personally that I was on Hill 609. I know my outfit was on Hill 609, but it doesn't mention that in that book. It mentions the 19th Engineers, which I never heard of, and mentions the British. And I remember Bradley, according to that book, Bradley told the 34th Division, says, "Get me that hill." And the 1st Division was on it, but they brought us off and put the 34th Division up there. And that was I guess it was the worst part of that end of the war in Africa, is when we used bayonets, throwed rocks, hand grenades, anything you get a hold of. We had what we call a trench knife, had knuckles on it, a dagger type. And I don't like to go into all that, but we used it because by the time we got almost to the top, the Germans pulled a counterattack on us. And they were looking right down our throat. We was wanting to get on top, you know, and look down their throat, but they turned the trick on us.
So there was hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, hand-to-hand.
609.
Sure was. And we wasn't shooting too much because they might shoot one of your own men. And that don't mention that in that book, and that's the reason I like to dig out all the my outfit. It was particularly my outfit. It would tell that. It don't even tell it in that book there. Not too much of it, because I don't think there's any reporters up there in that type of battle. But when we got Hill 609, things started dwindling down, and wasn't too long after that the Germans surrendered. Then we come back to Oran and started training for something else. We didn't know what. And I mean, it just train. Then we went into Sicily.
You were in on the invasion.
Yes,
which wave was your unit in?
I was in the 3rd wave in that.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the 3rd wave. My battalion was with the infantry, so they went in the 1st wave, and they break them down in the 3rd waves. I was driving a half track, and the 3rd wave wouldn't go in until they got the beach kind of secured, you know. But now I'll tell you something about this. My buddy from Alabama, we invaded Africa on his birthday, November the 8th. My buddy from Dallas, Texas, Johnny Day, invaded Sicily on his birthday, July the 6th. And we invaded France on my birthday, June the 6th.
Amazing.
How about that? And we had plenty of fireworks but no birthday cake. And so we got into Sicily, and they gave us a pretty hard time because Italy was just, we was toe, what you might say, the toe of Italy, Sicily was. And now Jack's outfit, 3rd Division, landed with us in Sicily, but they went on to Italy. We stayed in Sicily and wiped it out. But we had some pretty exciting things happen in Sicily too. We pulled into Olive Grove one night and pitch dark. And we got the awfulest stink. I mean, it just smelled awful. And we couldn't figure out what it could be because nothing around us really. So we was hungry. We eat sea rations and all that stink. And got up the next morning in Olive Grove where bombs and shells had dropped. Body parts were hanging in the olive trees. Italians and some Germans. They was, I don't know how many was there, but we didn't count how many bodies, but you could tell it was at least a squad, maybe 10 men. And I guess it was our own Air Force that did that. It could have been shells from the ships. But the worst part we had in Sicily, to my remembrance, was around Mount Etna, or Agrigento. We was trying to get around the mountain, and the Germans had what they called a 6-barrel mortar. We called it a screaming Mimi. If you ever heard that thing, you'd know it's a screaming Mimi. I can't.
It was an ugly sound.
Oh, it's an ugly sound. And it shot 6 times. It's like a revolver. And they would land in a pattern. They wouldn't just all land in one spot. They'd land in a pattern. But anyway, Rondello, our bulldozer operator, bless his heart, he was brave, and they never did, as far as I know, never did give him a medal. His name is mentioned in that book, in this book right here. He handled a bulldozer. And the road around the mountain that we needed to go around, the German, this one gun had us roadblocked. I mean, you start around it, they'd let in on you. And so Rondello, he'd get out there, and our artillery would throw in smoke shells to keep him secure, you know, so they couldn't see him. But every once in a while, they'd cut loose with that 6-barrel mortar. And Rondello, he'd cover up their mess that they'd made with their digging up the road. They'd dig it up. He'd go down, spread it out. We try and get our half tracks and tanks around the side of the mountain. And so we had artillery come up there, and they looked. They looked and looked. I mean, the best artillery observers, colonels and all, come up there and they would look over in this kind of it was in a mountainous section, but it was down kind of in a cove, and they would look and they couldn't see nothing. So for about a day and a half, day and a night, next day at noon, I believe, this second lieutenant went up there. He lay down on his stomach. I can see him right now. And he looked. He jumped up. He says, "Colonel, I found it. I found it." Boy, he's tickled. And he said, "Where in the hell is it?" He's tried to give him his coordinates, you know, about where it was at. Colonel says, "That's it. That's it." So they called in the P-47s. They could put a bomb in your back pocket. Oh, they were good. They come in there and they dive bomb them boogers. And after a while, they said you could see the Germans running because they didn't got them. And they said you see them running. And that cleared us up there, and we went around the mountain. And then we got around that mountain, and it seemed like things kind of eased off, and the Germans all fled to Italy. And then we come back, and rumors got started. We was coming back to the States, going to start training troops, you know. Yeah, we come back, and they issued new uniforms, and Patton put out a directive. You wear your leggings, your tie, and your helmet at all times when you was outside the company area. But you wear your helmet all the time.
So you're in Sicily at this
point,
but just back of the line.
Yeah, campaign was over.
Campaign's over.
And he come back, he smacked one of our men in the hospital. That booger, he could cuss and brag, and man, he just didn't care about human beings. I mean, as long as he won the battle, he was satisfied. We hated some of the armored men. The men that was under him thought he was wonderful.
How come?
Because they'd follow him to jumping off place, John. He was just they claimed he knew what he was doing. And he'd go by and say, salute me, you know, and we'd salute and call him a so-and-so. And he slapped one of the guys in our division. Called him Yalla, kid laying there wounded. But he put out this directive that you wear your helmet all the time. And when you're out of the company area, you wear your leggings and a tie. Can you imagine? And so one day I went to the mess sergeant wanted me to take a jeep and go to the water DP, get a little water in 5-gallon cans. And I wore my helmet liner, but the Jeep I was driving didn't have no windshield. And my helmet didn't have no chin strap, so I just took it off and laid down by my side, and the mess sergeant was with me. He had his helmet on, and MP stopped. And I said, now, wait a minute, I've grabbed my helmet, and he says, too late, soldier. I said, well, look, now, take it under consideration, this helmet don't have no no chin strap on it. And I laid there so the wind wouldn't blow it off. That's no excuse, no excuse. He wrote me up. And I got a court-martial, summary court-martial over that. And so anyway, we trained a little bit. They turned us loose. We went to Palermo and traveled around quite a bit before we come back. Then we come back to England. And that's when we really done some training. We thought we'd done some training in the past. But this, we built, believe it or not, we built LSTs out of cement. We dig holes in the ground, play like it was LST, a landing craft, see how fast we get out of it. Oh, we done some, we thought it was stupid. We just didn't know what the idea was. But finally we learned.
Was this late in the fall of '43 that you guys went back to England?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now you're preparing now for the Normandy invasion.
Yeah. And rumors got started that we were they're going to send us to 1st Division to the Philippines. Oh, no, we heard about the Philippines, and I didn't want to go over there.
You'd heard about the Bataan Death?
Yeah, oh yeah, we heard all about the Japs. And we didn't fight the Germans anytime with the Japs.
How come?
Well, the Japs had no mercy. The Germans did have some mercy until they would get you in a place where they didn't know what to do with you. And I'll tell you about that later on. But if they captured you, if they had a place to take you, they'd take you to a camp. But anyway, we trained, and then they split the division up again. And then we trained as engineers. Then we trained as infantrymen. And then the big day come that we all went to a assembly area. Let me just go back to Sicily. I mean, I've got to tell you this.
Okay.
Patton had to apologize to the 1st Division. Now, I don't think that's in any books. And they took our boats out of our rifles. They was afraid somebody shoot him. All of our ammunition, all of our boats out of our rifles.
They hated him that much?
They just didn't like it. And he gave us a speech. He stood up there and he wiped tears. When you get to Germany, he says, I want you to kill all them SOBs, blah, 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 blah. Of course, when he come on the stage, we all had to stand, you know, and stand at attention, then we could sit down. He started his big spiel. Then apologized for what he'd done. Then he finally come out with he'd done some things that the military disapproved of his actions and so forth. He apologized for that. But never did say, I'm sorry I smacked that kid. But I seen his point. There was a lot of guys that were just plain yellow. And you know, if you and I are in a foxhole together and we're bonded together, really, and I see danger that you don't see, I'm supposed to point that danger out, not leave you spellbound, if you want to call it, or just leave you with no idea what's coming. I've seen a lot of guys do it, and I'll tell you about a lieutenant in a minute that did that. But we landed in Europe. They gave me another fellow a Bangalore torpedo. That's a big, long piece of pipe with TNT in it. And the purpose of it, you take it and put it under barbed wire entanglements, and like the fuse, it blows a big gap in the barbed wire so the tanks get through, and men can get through. And so when we landed on Omaha, we had to go down because the Germans had put these big barriers in the water with TNT or mines, whatever you want to call them, on the front. LSTs would hit them things and just, and there's a lot of troops that got killed that way. Ships got sunk. So we finally figured out what was going on, and they took us down the beach about a mile and landed us, and he couldn't get this little sailor, bless his heart, I could still see him trying his best to get us in as close as he could, and finally he dropped the front, and we went off. He said, I believe he said, I hope this is close enough, fellas. And so we went off, and me and I can't remember who had the other end of the pipe, the Bangalore torpedo. But I went off first, And John, I didn't think I'd ever come back up. We was in water.
How deep?
I don't know. I don't think I can't remember whether I hit bottom or whether I finally dropped my end of the pipe and got back up, because I had my rifle slung around my shoulders, and I don't know whether I hit bottom or not, but I finally got back up. I don't know what happened to him, whether I pulled him off in it or not. But I know I turned loose of it, because there ain't no use of it. That thing dragged me in. And finally, we finally got to shore, and some of the guys were getting hit. And I guess you shot the rifles in. I think.
Continuing with Jason Byrd, 1st Engineer, Combat Battalion, 1st Infantry Division, ETO.
You had just landed at Omaha Beach.
Well, I was telling you about if you ever shot a .22 or a rifle into the splat, and you wonder. As I went ashore, we were all for ourselves then. Of course, if a buddy of mine got hit, and I would grab him and try to, if he was not dead, I would try to help him get to the beach. We helping each other that way, but still yet we was watching out for ourselves. And so, just by God's grace, I got to shore, and we got in pretty close, and then there's a gap. And I still could see the house, and I can't. Some fella asked me some time ago, "Is that house still?" Oh, John, it was Dr. Johnson asked me about the house. How far? No, I'm sorry. I get that in a minute. But we finally got our bearings together and everything. Our leaders and I was corporal then. I finally got up to corporal. Some of the guys lost their.
You stayed out of trouble in
England. Yeah, and so we got our group together, and of course a bunch of them got killed. But we finally got on the road, and we was marching in ditches, part of on one side, part on the other. And as we was marching along, this is what I was telling John about. You'd hear a rifle, but you wouldn't think not too much about it because you'd always look for somebody in front of you to fall. But what this person was doing is hitting the guys behind us. They didn't want nobody to know that they were hitting.
if it hit us in the front, and then we'd look around trying to observe where it was coming from.
So they're hitting the end of the column.
Yeah. And finally, we'd look back and we'd say, "Where's the setter? Where's D'Aquila?" And they'd be laying back there either wounded or dead. And then finally the platoon sergeant says, "Fellas, lay down." He said, "We've got a sniper." So platoon sergeant, platoon leader, platoon sergeant and staff sergeant, and our platoon leader, second lieutenant, they went up to this barn. And they found a woman up in the barn loft, laying there with a rifle, with a baby. And she'd was married to a German soldier. That's when I say that the French would just give in to anybody that's... But anyhow, they took her, and I don't know what they did with her, I don't know what they did with the baby. I'm sure they took her to a camp or something. They didn't kill her. The baby was crying. And she'd killed at least 5 of our men by just sniping. She's a pretty good shot.
Say.
And but she wasn't doing too much harm as far as holding up the war, but she's doing her part.
Did that make you guys angry?
Oh, yes, it did. Because every woman that we saw fraternized, we knew they'd been fraternized with the Germans or married to the Germans. I never did. Some of the guys would walk up and just back at them because we captured some of the Germans, like in Comont. And these French girls would grab them and, "Oh, don't take them," speaking French. I don't know what they were saying. They was afraid they was going to take them off and shoot them. Some guy that'd smack a fire out of them. Then they started the Free French Interior, that was underground. They finally come out from underground and started fighting with us. They'd take all the women and shave their head and strip them off. They could march down the street and spit on them and everything. So we got our objective. Comont was one of our real stumbling blocks, and that's what I was going to tell you a while ago about a leader leaving without explaining to the men. Comont, we laid some barbed wire right just at the left of Comont, because the artillery was coming in the city, and we was trying to keep the Germans off the main road coming in, and afraid they was going to pull a counterattack on us, and we laid barbed wire and mines. And I had a Jeep, had a spool of barbed wire on the back of it, I was driving the Jeep along, and the guys were taking it and putting a single apron barbed wire entanglements down, and it was pitch dark, and we was being as quiet as possible. Sometimes the Germans would shoot up a flare. You know what a flare is. Make it daylight, scary. Oh man, you just want to dig a hole and get in it because you're afraid they're looking right down your throat. And we'd lay low till that flare went out, then we'd get to working again. Well, after a while, we started telling Lieutenant Finley, he was the platoon leader, said, "Lieutenant, we better get out of here." And we're on this little knoll, a good silhouette. You could see us silhouette. You could see men walking. And they're going to be able to see us in a few minutes. Now we've got to finish this, fellas. We've got to finish this. And we finish this spool right here, and we'll quit. Well, after a while, it got to the place where mortar started coming. And Lieutenant Finley run. He didn't say, "Let's get out of here, men." He just run. Well, there was some of the guys on that side of the barbed wire, laying the barbed wire over here. They had to go all the way around to come around to be able to leave. And I had to get the barbed wire off the Jeep and get it out of here, and some of the guys got in the Jeep, and we finally got out. And somebody took 3 pot shots at him. I tried to shoot Lieutenant Hewitt for running. There was a lot of noise made then, people saying, "Lieutenant, don't run, don't run." He just kept going. Some guys took pot shots at him. I don't know whether they was trying to hit him or not. But we got back to the company area, and he got 2nd Platoon together and said, "Now, we had a little confusion last night, or this morning, laying the barbed wire. and I heard three bullets whiz by me. He says, I want to know if anybody was trying to shoot me. Nobody said a word. Jesse Wall was the platoon leader. He says, now, Lieutenant, he said, we tried to get you out of there. I don't believe nobody was hurt in the mortar barrage. We tried to get you out of there before the dawn set in. And you said, let's finish. Most of the officers were looking for medals. And they'd get them at the expense of some poor old private or whatever. And nobody ever told him who done the, or nobody would. I know I wouldn't have admitted if I'd have done it. But somebody tried to work him over. And so that little ordeal finally got over. And then we had an Indian in our outfit. We called him. He was a wino. Man, really? Chief Wino. Chief Wineclap. That's what we called him. He'd rather drink that old bit of wine, and he just loved that stuff. And he wanted to fight Germans. We wasn't fighting. In other words, he wanted to get in the fight. So one morning he was gone, and nobody ever knew where he went. But somebody says, I know where he went. I'd say he's killing Germans or he's already killed, because he wanted to get in the thick of it. And so we finally, on 4th of July, I never saw so many airplanes, John, in my life. Beautiful. It was dropping bombs and pamphlets. And the pamphlet said, this is how we celebrate the 4th of July in America. The fireworks. There was B-17s, B-24s, B-26s, B-25. Then the fighters come over. I never heard so much bombing in my life. I mean, the sky was full of beautiful planes. Boy, it sounded so good. It looked so good. Finally, we look up and we see one of them get hit. We count the bodies as it parachutes open and try to. I didn't know how many was in the plane. If it was a bomber, I didn't know how many was in there. And that's why you see one body going from end to end, just parachuting over, or maybe he's killed. I don't know, but that's something else horrible. Seeing somebody helpless that you just can't do anything with. Then we finally got in some real war. We was attached to the infantry then from then on, I guess, until I got wounded. And that was right at the Battle of the Bulge. I know one time in the pictures in that book there about a bridge that we worked all night. The Germans had blown out this bridge, and we was putting another bridge, a Bailey Bridge, across it. We put 2 machine guns up ahead of us, one on each side of the road. And the Germans, we had them disoriented where their pockets. They were cut off, and they didn't know which direction to go.
Is this during August, September?
It would have been July. It was August, I guess, because we was in Comont in July, and then we started moving out. I would say it was cold. It's kind of memories. We had our raincoats on, or heavy coats. I believe it was September, something along there. Because it was pretty chilly. Anyway, you've heard at night time, if you ever sit along, maybe at a rest area, you hear tires going down that big trucks. We heard that, and our machine gunners, our outpost up there, started shooting. And we knew that here come the Germans. We had the bridge finished, fixing to break. Get back. Did you know that German truck had hit the abutment of the old bridge and went off down? There's a picture of it. Down in the branch in the creek and caught on fire. And there's a bomb down there that it hadn't gone off. We got the Germans out. There was 3 Germans in there. We got them out. We got out of there, and that truck, and that's while the bomb went off and blowed our bridge, some of the bridge up. We had to go fix it again. And so there's a lot of things like that. And then we got in some real bad weather, rain and snow, and we was trying to fix the roads where tanks could get through. And then we couldn't figure out where this company was hauling lumber up to us, and crushed gravel. I don't know where they were getting it, but they were bringing it up to us. And we was laying lumber across these big old muddy roads where, in other words, a tank couldn't even go through it. It's so muddy. And we laid boards crossways every way in the world to make a good solid foundation. And then the Germans, I reckon the Germans knew that was going to be a real pothole. They kept that under observation. You get it fixed to where traffic could flow, then they'd shoot it out. They'd throw artillery in on it. And but we had some pretty good action. I don't call it pretty. We had quite a bit of action on up through Liège, Belgium, and on up into the Herzen Forest. And we found bayonets that were put in trees in World War I. We found the pattern of trenches. We found trees that had the bayonet. These old soldiers in World War I stuck the bayonet to a little sapling now. And it's still there, and the point was sticking out. Well, the handle was sticking out, the point wasn't. And we wanted to break them off for souvenirs. Said, no, break that off. That means something to somebody. And maybe some old soldier back here in the States drove that bayonet in there. But something like that, you wonder how those old soldiers, they were gassed and went through a horrible war in Germany. Then we got up through Liège, and it got nasty. The weather. Man, I tell you, the snow, it cold, and I often wondered how in the world we pulled through just the weather itself. John just hour after hour after hour, walk. And no change of socks. Sometimes you get some clean socks. So we got up into past Liège, Belgium, and it started, we built a great big CP. We used big logs and built a great big division CP headquarters. And that's where we was going to, from then on, it's going to be from there that they would keep everything organized. But we got the surprise of our life, and this is when I got wounded, just at the first of the Belgian bugs. It snowed. You couldn't see a fellow in front of you. I couldn't detect the distance. But the Germans, here they come. And I got wounded in the right shoulder.
How did that happen? What were the circumstances?
Well, the real circumstance, our planes couldn't fly. Germans knew it. I think the Germans planned it. They knew their weather report. We didn't. They knew what it was. And this was their last stand, really. I think they knew this was, if they could get through this, they could push us back into Channel. But they come with all their force. Tanks. You could hear the rumble of the tanks for miles before they got up. Then I got wounded, and I got back to the hospital. But
so you got hit in the shoulder.
Yeah, right shoulder.
With shrapnel?
Shrapnel, yeah. See, the Germans, we had our tanks, all of our armor in this forest. And you start a tank up, the smoke would build up through the tops of the trees, and they knew that we had armor in there. And they just started shelling the fire out of it. And the shells would sometimes hit a tree and shatter down on top of it, just shower you with shrapnel. I hit me in the helmet and everywhere, but I got it in the right shoulder. And finally I told my squad leader, I said, I'm hit. He said, well, get back out to the CP there and get taken care of. And I just thought they just bandaged me up and send me back, which I wish they had, really, because I wanted to see the end of it. I really did. I wanted to go further into Germany. all of us, when we got that far, we wanted to see who, the more or less the headquarters. We wanted to see more of the output of what the Germans had, and see the hatred and the malice that the German people, they hated us because they thought their Fuhrer was really going to take this thing to the end, you know. But after they saw that they were losing, they got more hatred. But the worst thing that I heard about, I didn't see this, but it was reported that the Germans captured practically all of my outfit. Of course, they captured a bunch and shot them because they had no place to take them. And it was snowing, and our medics had to go in there and dig them out of the snow. And that was the worst part of the end of the war, because the Germans knew they were drowning. They knew that they were on their last straw, and they was going to do anything in the world to win it out. But the young, and something else I want to tell you about is these young SS troopers. John, I've never seen, well, I don't know if I should put this on this or not. This country is getting just exactly, the young people over here get just exactly like those young German soldiers.
How was that?
Skinheads, these Ku Klux, well, not Ku Klux Klan, but some of these groups, I saw on TV the other night where these three brothers killed their parents. They're getting sassy, they're getting smarter, they're getting meaner, and they'll do anything to rob you, you know, and knock you in the head, kill you, just get your money.
And the SS troopers you saw,
they were so. You look them straight in the face, John, and they'd spit on you. They'd stand. They knew they were captured. They knew they'd have a chance. They were told that don't be captured because they'll shoot you. But these kids were driven to the place where they didn't care. I mean, they were Hitler's kids. Some of them didn't even shave. I mean, just little kids, a peach fuzz. And you stand there and you just, where did these kids ever come from? We had them all lined up there, and we have kids and some old men, and the old men would say, "Let us see your automatic artillery before you kill us." They thought we had automatic artillery when we had a number of guns in place, you know it. I mean, just continually sounding off. And the young kids, they'd spit on you and asked them how old they were, and I couldn't speak German. Some of the interpreters would tell us what they would say, but they wouldn't take no cigarettes. A lot of times we'd offer them cigarettes because we wanted to show them that we was not as bad as they thought we were. No, they didn't want a cigarette, or they'd take it and tear it up. The old men would usually take it, show us their billfolds, their family, you know. Here's a men with a wife and 2 or 3 children, knew that they was fighting a losing cause, and didn't know whether their family was still alive or not. But I guess that was something else that I tried to picture of our youth in this country, how the path that they're going down. They don't have no leadership. They have nobody to pattern. The parents, that can't pattern their life after their parents, and so they just leave home and get with the crowd and do their thing. And that's the reason I believe the Holocaust. You know, they try to say that never happened. And I know one lady in Oak Ridge, Myra Kilman. She escaped the Holocaust. You ever hear of her? She fine lady, Jewish lady, and she wants to go to as many schools as she can to tell kids about the Holocaust and what it did for Germany, how it really messed up people in Germany, tore families apart, and that's something else. After of course I didn't know anything about that then, but I knew we had some Jewish fellas in our outfit, and they was reluctant. They knew about the Jew, how Germans hated the Jew. But they were in our outfit. They were American soldiers, and they were afraid to be captured because they knew what they would face. And but I wanted to go on. That's after I come back and learn all about the Holocaust. Then I wished I could have went on through, because my outfit, not the first engineers, but the whole division, I think helped. They found some of these prisoners, and I believe General Eisenhower, I think he made some of the made some of the higher ups of the German army walk through these camps and shaming them and calling them all kinds of names. But that is about the only thing there's a lot of things that I did. Now, I go back to Aachen, Germany. I don't like to brag about what I did, but I got the Purple Heart by being wounded. But we got in Aachen, Germany, I won the Bronze Star.
How'd you win that? When was that?
That was, well, I'd have to look at mine.
So you got wounded, went back, and then came back to the unit?
After we left Colmont, France, went on through France and Belgium, and got into Germany, in Aachen, Germany. That was in the winter months. I can't remember what month.
It was before your wounding at the
yeah, before my wounding, yeah.
That was tough fighting.
Yeah, it sure was. Aachen, Germany, we just, you can see pictures of it. It demolished. We got up there in trying to take out some mines and booby traps, because infantry had to go through, and we didn't want to tear any more of the city up than was already torn up. There was, I think, a cathedral there. They didn't want to tear it up, and but we knew that the Germans were not too far away from Aachen. We'd run them out, but we knew they was trying to take it back, and we had a bunch of men up there. We were trying to get these mines and booby traps out of the way, and one of the guys drove a truck up there, had all of our equipment in it, and he had a 50 caliber machine gun on a turret on top, and he drove it up and got it locked under a streetcar wire. And I mean, he pulled up, and the wire got under the gun, and he just didn't try to get it out. He seen everybody running, because the platoon sergeant, let's get out of here, and I said, we're not leaving this truck sitting here. He said, let's go, Byrd. I said, no, I'm not leaving this truck sitting here. So one of the guys, I said, get up here and help me get this wire from under the gun. So we finally got it loose, and about 10 men jumped in the truck and laid down. And we got backed out, and I was going down the road, and I passed up the road that I was supposed to go down. I was supposed to make a left. I'll never forget that. Went past it and put in reverse. Then the Germans finally started coming in, and they just hollered, Byrd, hurry up and get out of here! Byrd, hurry up and get out of here! I said, I'm doing the best I can. I put in reverse and backed up and got where I could turn left, and went down the road, and we got out of there just in time. They'd have got us, but I saved the truck and about 12 men.
They gave you the Bronze Star?
Bronze Star. Yeah.
Did they tell you at the time that they were putting you in for it, or did you find out later?
The motor sergeant says, I'm putting you in for medal, Byrd. I said, I just want to get out of there, and I didn't want to leave this truck, because a good 2.5-ton GMC truck is real handy, to have around, haul troops with. But that was another exciting time, because to tell you the truth about it, that night we'd found a wine cellar.
You guys had a good time.
I wouldn't have done that, Johnny.
You guys got into the wine cellar?
Yeah, wine cellar, and there's a bunch of us in there. Everybody opened up and tasted it, and then I'd like that, they'd throw it down. And we got down the bottom shelves, and there's dirt, dust. And Jesse Wall, he's my platoon sergeant, he pulled this out, he said, look what I found. I'll never forget that. Look what I found. Champagne. He opened that up, and it gushed out, and he throwed his mouth over it, dirt and all. And he got a big swig of that, and everyone else started getting us a bottle of champagne. And I'll never forget, there was steps going up. It was a apartment house or something. I can't remember what type of house it was. But I remember there's rooms in it, and we slept in it that night because there's beds in it. We slept on mattresses, believe it or not.
That was a treat.
Oh, that was a treat. But we come down the steps and striking matches and using little flashlights and found all this. And I sat down on the step. I'll never forget it. Spider webs all over the place. Sitting there, and I just guzzling on that champagne. I never tasted champagne before. I didn't know what it really do for you. I just knew it was a good drink, they said. I drank the old vino and all that junk. And I sat there, and I knew I was talking out of silly. You know, I don't know if you ever been that way or not. Talking silly. And I got up and I fell flat on my face. I was drunker than a skunk. And
so then what happened?
I fell flat on my face, and everybody was just laughing. And finally got to singing this old song. Drunk singing in the bar room. Or he's a jolly good fella, and they started singing that limey song, "Roll Me Over in the Grass and Do It Again" or something. We were singing all them old old Army PX canteen songs, we call them. And finally, Lieutenant, he come in, he says, "Where you guys at?" Jesse, "Well, we're down here. Come down here, Lieutenant." He come down, he got him a big swig, says, "Fella, I can't take much of this. We got to get out of here." And I was laying there, Gessner was laying there, wasn't laying, we just on my elbow, you know. Oh, just my world was going around, you know. And finally we got our ducks in a row, and finally we helped each other get up the steps. And Byrd, you old drunk, you know. And we got upstairs, and I said, "I'm going to my bed." That nice bed I slept on that night. "I'm going to my bed." "No, you're not. We're getting out of here." Well, then we got out and kindly found us a place where we could sit down and sober up. And Lieutenant says, "Jesse Walsh said, if I hadn't took that drink down, I'd have you court-martialed." I says, "I drank with." Says, "I can't."
He wasn't in much of a position to do anything.
No,
He drank too, right?
He just had to have a sip of that champagne.
So did you guys move out then?
Well, we, John, I can't, since I was in that condition, I can't remember where we did go. Seemed like there was a rock wall, and we fell off or jumped off this rock wall and went as a street, and we went down below the street, and there was bushes, like hedgerows down there. And we went down there, and the lieutenant says, "Fellas, hurry up," says, "do something. We're going to have to search for mines. We got a job here to do. We got to get on the ball." So finally, everybody kind of got a clear mind about, and it seemed like that was, I don't know what time it was. It was in the evening. Finally, we said, "Can you stand?" Stand at attention. Made us stand at attention, just to get us see if we'd. And finally, we could get to where we could do port arm, manual of arms, and all that stuff without dropping our rifle. And some of us had our helmets turned backwards. Oh, we was in pitiful condition, but we all kind of we was drinking water and pouring water on our head. Finally, we got, it was chilly weather too, but then we got the orders to go up and start clearing the streets. And that's when I want to be a hero, I guess.
So that's when the Bronze Star. Do you think the champagne is?
I don't think I'd have done it, John.
Really?
Because there's too many bullets hailing and mortars flying for a sober man to do that. But I got out of there. That's the reason I passed up that road, I guess. That street I was supposed to turn off on. "Byrd, you're going too far." So I put in reverse and backed up and cussing and carrying on. And they was hitting the truck. Machine gun fire was hitting the back of the truck. "Byrd, hurry up. We're going to get killed." And the guy was with me. He said, "I'll get that machine gun up." I said, "You sit still." So we got down it's kind of down into a level spot. We drove about, I guess, a mile and a half. That's when Sergeant Daniel come out and says, Byrd, I'm going to put you in for a medal for that.
What is it? What did you say to him?
I don't remember what I said. I said, well, I just couldn't leave this truck sitting, Sergeant. But that was something. Another thing happened right before we got into Aachen. This is good. Before we got into Aachen, we would try to find a German woman that would do our laundry because we was kind of in a rest area. It was kind of something like Fountain City in Knoxville. It's just a little Byrd or something outside of Aachen. And we'd try to find women to do our laundry. We'd give them C rations and K rations, whatever. And so Vincent Lemming, the meanest guy I ever met in my life.
Why?
He'd do anything in the world, John. Before he come in the Army, he was a guard at the North Carolina State Penitentiary. Mean. I seen him stick a bayonet through a kid one time. John, I tell you, I said, Vincent, I said, you know, had no call for that. He said, look under his collar. This kid had his hand up here, and he's letting his hand scoot down. He had a dagger right there under his collar.
The SS?
Yeah. And Vincent just, and he cussed him. Kid just shivered. Well, anyway. And so we'd search around and find some woman to do our laundry. And so in the meantime, Vincent found this old cow up in the field. And he shot that cow and got rope out of one of the trucks and strung that cow up to a tree. Head down, gutted that cow, skinned her. We had steaks that you wouldn't believe. Oh man, and Jesse War, our platoon leader, he was in a German pillbox down there, and them pillboxes have little air holes, and you smell that steaks aroma coming out. How do you want yours, Byrd? I just fry it. And that cow was hanging up there, and flies started blowing her, and but they go up there and cut off a big old steak. Well, hard thing about it, the battalion commander happened to come down the road in his Jeep. He saw what we was doing. He said, what are you fellas eating? There we are with our muskets with a steak in it. We're eating meat. Where'd you get it? He says, where's Sergeant Wall? I said, he's in there cooking. So he says, where'd y'all get that meat? Well, somebody had to tell. Vincent Lemming says, Colonel, I killed a cow. She's hanging right up there. Do you want a steak? And he just plain talking. He's a buck sergeant. And I ain't gonna say this. No, he was homosexual. But anyway, he said, if you want a steak, I'll go up there and cut you one off. We found out later on he was. But Colonel said, no. So then some lady that owned the cow, made the Army pay for the cow. Mm-hmm. We almost all of us got court-martialed over that. Oh, yeah. Oh, we put on hops. Oh, man. They wouldn't let us out. I mean, they put up where somebody would watch us all the time because they just had us under restriction. But that was the best steak I had since I left the United States.
I bet it tasted good after all the sea rations.
Oh yeah, it tasted good. That grease running out the corner of our mouth, that was good though. No, this Vincent, he let the cow out of the bag he'd get drunk, and he'd want to touch it, you know, and we'd push him away. We wouldn't call him any names or anything. We'd push him away. And finally he got transferred. I don't know where. Somebody
the Army didn't catch on to him.
Well, I know. I think one of the some of the guys really squealed on him, and the platoon leader got a hold of it and turned him into company commander. And they didn't transfer him on account of that. They just transferred him because they figured he could be more service of another outfit. And he done his duty with us. But he'd volunteer for me. He'd take me out on patrol, John. He would scare me to death. He wasn't afraid of nothing.
Really?
He'd volunteer for me. I said, Vincent, I don't want to go with you. Ah, come on, you're brave. Come on, you hillbilly. And he'd take 3 guys, me and 2 other guys, and there'd be a pillbox or something that's holding us up, and we'd go out there and search after that pillbox, and we'd have a rock. He'd get a rock, and when you back up, when you're going forward, you pick on your butt of your gun. When you're moving up, everybody kept picking on make sure everybody's close together. And when you're backing up, you'd hit each other on the shoulder or in the head or somewhere. That means everybody back up. You'd take us out and I mean where you could almost just punch a guy in the nose. Flares would come up, and man, there we lay out, just out in the open, just laying there, just waiting for the machine gun to just tear us all to pieces. And we'd lay there just as quiet as a mouse. And we'd find a machine gun. Sometimes we'd destroy it. Sometimes we'd go back and get a mortar outfit to destroy it. But boy, he could talk. He was German. He could talk pretty good German.
So how would you destroy the machine gun?
We would sometimes he'd take a hand grenade and throw it in. Maybe if it was just more or less an outpost, it'd be maybe 3 Germans in it. And he'd get close enough, he or one of us would throw a hand grenade in and blow it up. And but I don't remember him ever getting any medals. I don't remember him getting. He should have got the Silver Star at least. I don't remember him ever getting anything. And then there's another times that we crawled, not crawled, we scooted on our stomachs across the field, pasture field I call it, because you could smell the cow manure. It was to a barbed wire fence, to a barn or shed out the other side of the field, because we could hear bullets coming across. And Vincent said that's the only place it could be. He's a squad leader, he's Buck Sergeant. He told Sergeant Walsh, I'm going to take Byrd. I said, no, you're not taking Byrd. He said, yeah, I like to take Byrd. So he took me and 2 others. He wouldn't take the same other 2 guys. But we crawled on our bellies all the way across that field. And sure enough, there's 4 Germans in that building. And Vincent, we stayed on our stomach, but Vincent, he got up close to the building, and that booger, he had a Sub-Thompson machine gun at this time. That booger, he jumped up and went through that door. He just 2 or 3 times,
Really?
and killed him. He didn't know how many was in there at that time. He just sprayed the whole building. And well, we heard the bullets going across. I said, Vincent, you crazy thing. He said, let's see how many we got in here. I think there's 4, 3 of them is dead, and 1 was wounded. And Vincent trying to get him to tell about some other Germans around, And Vincent could speak pretty good German. He get the message across. And he told him some things. Then, since we had that cleared out, we crawled back across the field. But and that, like I say, I don't remember him. He done some heroic things. I can't remember him ever getting anything out of it.
Bet there are a lot of guys like that.
I'd say there were, yeah. Yeah. But that's about my ordeal, I guess. Of course, after I come back from overseas, I promised God so many times. I'll tell you about this in North Africa. This is funny now, but it wasn't funny then. The 88s would shoot, and their shells would fall in a pattern. 4. 3 of them would fall in a pattern. The other one was we called it a rover. He didn't know where it was going to hit. And we was sitting at Tebessa in an olive grove, and we had our foxholes dug in along this bank. And we take a can of gas, put dirt in it, and light it, and heat her water. There would be no smoke. Heat her canteen of water. We'd watch it, go out and get it, come back, pour a coffee in it. I was in this foxhole, and my aunt had sent me a New Testament with a metal front. And so I kept looking at my water, and I could see the steam coming off. And John went out to get my water, and I heard boom, 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 boom. And 88 is scared to death, too. And boy, I grabbed my water and I run back to the foxhole, and I didn't have too much water left, but I jumped in the foxhole and I got my Testament, and I couldn't even find John 3:16. I mean, I was ignorant to the Bible. I didn't know a thing about it. I was raised in a Christian home. I didn't know a thing about the Bible. And I heard before the three landed, and I just got as far as back. When we dig a foxhole, we'd try to dig back a little bit so we could hunch back in there. I said, Lord, where's this other one going to hit? Hit right on the bank. Here come the dirt in. We was always taught to put our rifle standing up in our foxhole in case we get covered up. We'd have breathing room. Here come all that dirt in. I just knew I was dead. I knew it. I just knew it. But after it's all over, I heard Sergeant Wall come down through there. Is everybody all right? He saw my hole. He said, Byrd, where you at? I said, I'm coming out. But I promised God so many times, if you just get me back home, I'd serve him. I'd do anything if you just get me back home. Because I mean, you just knew, death was right there. And I come back to the hospital in Liverpool, England. Stayed there for a number of times. They give you a shot when you come back. I can't think of the name of it. You probably could name it. That you let everything out. You tell everything.
Sodium pentothal.
That's it.
Yeah.
And they give everybody a shot, and some guys would lay there and talk about their girlfriends. They said, you're not shell-shocked. And they told me when I was under that sedation, I threw the pillows around, put you in a room, and I was ducking, I was doing a lot of things, and they figured I was shell-shocked. And they ZI'd me, zone interior, and they sent me home. And the first thing I wanted when I got off the ship was a can of beer. That shows you how much you trust the Lord, And since then, when I come out of the Army, I got married, got a job at Oak Ridge. Got married down there, met a fine little gal, got married. Then I enlisted in the Air Force. And done pretty good in the Air Force. I was going for 30 years. And when I was coming up for discharge re-enlistment, I was going to enlist for an indefinite period. That was during the Korean War. They was about to drag me into Korea. Us ground force had been in the Air Force. They was about to take us all back and put us in Korea. Boy, we scared to death. Here I'd worked up to staff sergeant, and then they made me first sergeant, acting first sergeant because the ratings was frozen. But I went for discharge re-enlistment, and they told me I had TB.
Really?
I said, you're kidding. We played football and baseball at Chinook Field, Chinook Air Force Base. I said, you're kidding. I smoked then. Had a cough. I said, yeah. And I was married. My wife was pregnant with our first child. And that tore me up. That tore us both, my wife and myself, up. And a black doctor, Dr. Ford, boy, I thought he was one of the finest doctors I ever met in the Army. He explained to us all about it. And they sent me to Fitzsimmons Army Hospital in Denver, Colorado. This is 1951. Yeah, 1949, I'm sorry. December I was coming for discharge re-enlistment. 49, 50, yeah, 49. And they sent me to Fitzsimmons Army Hospital, and that's when I accepted Christ. And I was in the hospital too long.